let's get started with our Insight Special. I caught up with the founder of Career Launcher and asked him about his growth story. Take a listen. Thank you so much for speaking with us on ET Now, Leaders of Tomorrow. I want to start by really talking to you about the kind of potential that you see as far as the education space goes. When you started 15, 20 years ago, it was obviously very different. What are the next, let's say, 10 years looking like?
I think it's a very insightful part of defining a business space. So what has happened is in the last 20 years, education also has expanded to include a couple of very broad and big areas which are also entrepreneurially more accessible outside of the stereotypical education that we know. So if you look at it, education is kind of used to add up as school, setting up your own school as an entrepreneur, or setting up higher education university as an entrepreneur, or educational services. It could be coaching, like what Career Launcher started with, or book publishing, etc. While these have grown, this part of business of education is still mostly license driven. Whereas the two new areas that are emerging, which are non-licensed and young, micro and small entrepreneurs can access our skills and the knowledge related areas, which are other kinds of training, research, new innovations. That also is emerging as a very interesting area in education. Yeah, so it has evolved, and it's typically it's a 3 to 5% of GDP of a country. So we're talking about a $200 billion kind of a market size opportunity for entrepreneurs, and it's very exciting as we look into the future.
You have just refiled your DRHP looking at tapping the primary markets.
Right.
Can you give us a sense of where you're really going to be using those funds?
Today we look at ourselves as a company which is now known as CL Educate. CL Educate is what is going public. CL Educate spans what we internally define or script as, it's about youth, knowledge and careers. Let me kind of give you a sense of what do we mean by this. We acquired a very young enterprising company called Achendra. Achendra is a company founded by about 7 or 8 PhDs from different parts of the world and led by one gentleman, Dr. Sivaraman, and these guys have come together and formed, this is a research incubating company. That is saying that is built on the premise that when India travels from a $2 trillion economy to a $5 trillion economy, a lot of new innovations are going to take place in the universities. A lot of this has to happen in the corporates. So Achendra helps build those knowledge incubators, research incubators inside universities and in companies. And we're also bridging the two by bringing the research funds from the corporates and making youngsters with whom we are already in touch with. About 1.5 million of these youngsters are part of the Career Launcher ecosystem. So we've added the knowledge creation part to careers. And the third part is the youth. If you actually look at our span of touch, it is from the 14, 15-year-olds to about 26, 27-year-olds who go to, let's say, go to IAS or to a top business school in the world. Now, this is, in my view, or in our view, the heart of India's power of becoming a global economy.
Have you faced any kind of funding challenges along the way? And I essentially want you to give some advice to the entrepreneurs and the MSMEs who are watching the show to understand how you really overcome funding challenges.
Yes, I see funding challenges as the biggest challenge. When after 2 years of my study on campus at an IIM, the only learning that I walked away from, which is kind of reverberated all the time, is entrepreneurship is about cash in bank. Okay, a P&L can be doctored by an accountant, but you are as good as the cash in the bank. So this is something that actually is extremely understood by entrepreneurs. I think the focus must be on how efficient we are, or you are as an entrepreneur, to make your money stretch. Can you stretch a rupee as equal to 5 rupees? How do you work on not going too aggressive on scaling without being successful in a curtailed innovation sandbox kind of an experiment or a pilot or a prototype. I think when especially there is too much of exuberance in the economy, the fundamentals are kind of forgotten, and thought of scaling begins to preoccupy the entrepreneurs or the founding group. That is something that one must watch out against. Focus, be very solid, build a robust team, and conserve cash. And when you go to the investors, they always look at these 3-4 things when they begin to put money. And investment community is very small. The word travels around. And if you have a good idea, you're doing well, the first investor will go and speak with a couple of more guys for the follow-up round. And you've seen it all the time.
You're very aggressive in technology, in the use of technology. How much of the total, budgets would you say that an MSME should look at in terms of having technology, and how critical is it for MSMEs to really integrate technology into all the processes they do?
In today's context, technology has to be the heart of the DNA itself. It's just not an appendix or an add-on or a desirable thing to have at phase 2 of your expansion. One of the founding members must be tech competent and not just tech believer. I think technology skills have become a super premium to have. And the founding team, if it believes in technology, I think they are much better placed in being successful than ever before. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is, I think if you look at the most successful stories today of the world, from Google and Amazon to even telecom companies here in India, I think eventually you're owning only one thing, which is your brand, which has to be powered by the IP that you hold, the intellectual property that you hold, the patents that you can aim to hold, and that companies will get there. So technology is the only way you can build the next massively successful entrepreneurial ventures in India too.
My last question as we wind down, what advice would you give MSMEs, entrepreneurs, startups about surviving the first year?
There is this age-old saying in the Marwadi community, and as you know, they have DNA, and business intelligence is part of their DNA, is that the youngster should aim to survive for 1,000 days when he sets out. And I heard it from a friend of mine in a particular conversation. And they also say that, or he told me that if you survive 1,000 days, you're perhaps good to survive 1,000 years. And I don't disagree with that. A year, in my view, is too short a time for an entrepreneur to actually figure out lots of things. You must give yourself enough opportunity to make mistakes, get time to reflect, recover, tweak your business model, pivot a little bit, go give it a shot again. And while doing all of these, you would want to ensure that you are safe, you're not hurt too much, and there's a little bit of a cash in your bank account. And if you're able to do this and limit your innovation into the sandbox, make it work, and then expand, I think that's the best way to scale it. So my advice is to tell them, don't think just 1 year. Ask yourself, do I have the endurance to last 3 years? And in that equation, when they are thinking about it, they must build not the rosiest of assumptions. They must actually put in pretty dark assumptions. There's no money to be made, I'll be thrown out for lack of money by my landlord, and all of that. Then you build the right kind of a stamina to survive in the tough market. The second one I would always say is, are you focused on picking up areas of entrepreneurship that you have a natural liking for, skills for, and not the hot area? Because the hot area will become cold the moment there is a small mishap in the marketplace. Whereas if you pick up an area that you are extremely excited about, then a lot of your native intelligence, insights, they come into play. So 1,000 days, and the areas that you feel very passionate about and your skills for are the two things that I would say for a young occupant of the MSME space.
Let's take a break. When we come back,